Under the scorching sun of New Mexico, Callum Harlan, 39 years old, marked by the scars of war, ruined and empty since the loss of his wife, stopped his exhausted horse in a dry riverbed. He intended to spend his last dollars on whiskey and bullets to put a quick end to everything. A desperate human scream, carried by the hot wind, stopped him. His hand brushed the Mungwin talisman on his belt, a crescent moon crossed by eagle wings, a gift from Chief Ironwood, who had saved him 21 years earlier, with these words: "A man's courage is measured by the decisions he makes when no one is watching." Those words had haunted him in every mistake and every nightmare, and now they stirred him again. He spurred Ash forward. Upon cresting a gentle rise, the scene took his breath away. In the middle of the desert stood an ancient, twisted, enormous mesquite. From its thick branches hung 6 young Apache girls, tied by the ankles, suspended upside down like strange fruits. Their braids swayed gently. Their traditional deerskin dresses, adorned with turquoise and shells, were torn and covered in dust. The youngest could not have been more than 12. Her face was reddened by the blood rushing to her head. The oldest, about 20, stared ahead with defiant eyes, refusing to cry. Nearby, 3 rough men with sweat-soaked hats laughed as they tightened their saddle cinches, ready to leave. Bounty hunters or something worse, working for someone who paid well for Apache merchandise. Callum's pulse throbbed against the old wound in his chest. He could turn back, no one would know, but the Mungwin burned against his skin like a hot iron. He dismounted slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Gentlemen," he called out, with a steady voice despite the tremor in his hands, "that's no way to treat ladies." The men turned, hands going to their holsters. The leader, a brute with a scarred face and a tobacco-stained smile, growled, "Move along, drifter. This is none of your business." Callum's gaze settled on the girls. One of them, the one in the middle, looked him in the eyes. Beneath her torn sleeve peeked a small crescent moon-shaped scar. His heart lurched. Ironwood's mark. They were his daughters. The chief had spoken of them once in the cave where he saved his life. 6 girls, strong as the desert wind, marked so that one day someone would remember them. "I'm making it my business," he said softly. The fight was quick and brutal. Callum's colt barked twice, dropping the leader and his companion before they could draw their weapons. The third lunged with a knife. Callum dodged him, drove his elbow into his throat, and finished him with a single shot to the leg, enough to disable him, not to kill him. He never killed if there was another option. The men fled on foot, cursing, abandoning their horses. Callum cut the ropes one by one, catching each girl as she fell, laying her carefully on the ground. Their wrists were raw, their faces swollen, but none of them screamed. The oldest, Taya, sat up first with a knife already in her hand that she had hidden in her moccasin. "Who are you?" she demanded, in a hoarse but fierce voice. Callum took the Mungwin from his pouch and held it out. "Someone your father once saved. My name is Callum Harlan." Taya's eyes widened. She touched the identical mark on her wrist. "The white boy with blue eyes," she whispered. "He told us stories about you every year. He said you carried gratitude in your heart like a warrior. You carry honor." The girls gathered around him, first in silence, then murmuring thanks in Apache and in broken English. Callum gave them water from his canteen, tore strips from his shirt to bandage wounds, and shared the last piece of jerky. As night fell, they sat around a small campfire he lit, sheltered by the dry riverbed. The youngest, Nessa, curled up against her sister, Mara, trembling despite the heat. "They kidnapped us for the land," Taya explained softly. "Declan Cain wanted our father's acres. Good water, good grazing. Father registered them legally under the homestead law. Cain killed him, scattered us to sell us or hold us until there was no heir left to claim. These men were taking us to his ranch." Callum stared into the flames. He had taken part in campaigns that stripped tribes of lands like that. Guilt had followed him for years. "I can't repair what they've done to your people," he said, "but I can fix this." Taya watched him. "Why?" "Because there are debts that never end," he replied, "and because no man should stand by while girls are hanging from a tree." During the following weeks, Callum and the 6 sisters became a strange family on the run. They traveled at night, avoiding trails, living off the land while the girls taught him Apache customs he had never learned, how to find water in stone, how to read the wind to predict rain, how to heal with herbs instead of whiskey. In return, he taught them white men's tricks, reading maps, shooting a revolver accurately, bluffing in a poker game if necessary. They struck first at Cain's outlying camp in Tucson, freeing Eliana, 14 years old, who was about to be auctioned. Then, with growing audacity, they raided Devil Rim, where Mara and Nessa were being held. Callum's heart almost stopped twice during the shootout, a sharp pain in his chest, but each time one of the girls was there, Taya steadying his aim, Gian applying a poultice to the wound, Ellen whispering encouragement to him in Apache. The final rescue took place in Sonora, where Mexican traffickers were holding Gian and Ellen. It cost Callum everything, his last horse traded for information, his last bullets spent in a night raid. But when dawn broke, the 6 sisters were together again, free. Cain's empire collapsed afterwards, with the girls alive and testifying. The courts, reluctant as they were, could not ignore the claims. The land remained in the hands of Ironwood's heirs. Cain disappeared into Mexico, becoming a fugitive. Years passed. Callum's heart endured longer than doctors had predicted. He never married again, never rebuilt a ranch of his own. Instead, he lived quietly on a small plot of land the sisters insisted on giving him in gratitude. Land near the old mesquite, now a place of pilgrimage for their people. The girls became women. Taya was a teacher, uniting worlds with her stories. Mara, a healer. Nessa, an artist whose paintings captured the soul of the desert. The others became lawyers, mothers, leaders. On deep afternoons, Callum would sit beneath that same tree, the mowen worn smooth by years of rubbing. The women, once girls, visited him, bringing their children who climbed the branches and laughed. They called him Ta Abuelo in Apache. He never considered himself a hero. If this story stayed with you, like it, subscribe to it, share it, and comment where you're listening from, he would say. But on deep nights, when the stars turned overhead, Callum sometimes felt the presence of iron wood in the wind, and finally understood that kindness was not an isolated act. It was a seed planted in darkness that took root through time and blossomed in lives he never imagined touching. One winter, when snow covered the desert for the first time in decades, Callum closed his eyes beneath the mesquite and went peacefully.
The 6 sisters buried him there, under the tree that once held them in terror and now shaded his rest. They carved the mowin into the bark over his grave. Decades later, when the great-grandchildren asked why the old cowboy rested among the Apache ancestors, the answer was simple. Because one day, long ago, he chose to see us not as enemies, but as people, and by saving us, he saved himself. In the end, the greatest rescue was not that of bodies from ropes, but that of a broken heart from despair. And in that silent miracle, hope proved stronger than hate, compassion deeper than any canyon, and the small act of courage of one man spread like ripples to change lives forever, including his own. If this story moved you, please like, share, and follow for more. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there right now.